All right, we're just going to go for it because testing microphone, testing camera, it's like a whole big setup. Don't really feel like doing it, so we're just going to kind of wing it. I was tagged the author tag video. I don't know if it's a challenge. I think it's more of like a say hello. Anyway, so there are 10 questions that I am supposed to answer about myself as a writer. So I guess I'll do that now. Question number 1 is, where do you write? I'd love to say that I write anywhere, but that's not true. I don't think that's true for most of us. Strangely, the place where I find I can just kind of completely disconnect from the world and write best is on the train on my phone. And I'd love to shake that and turn that energy into somewhere, or use that kind of productive energy somewhere else. But I don't know what it is. There's something about, I guess, like the anonymity of being on the train combined with the lack of additional space to look at on my phone. Something, I don't know, because I have Scrivener on my phone, sitting on the train, or I'm standing on the train, and I just feel like I can write here. It's weird. Other than that, I have a great little office that I'm in right now at home, and there's cafes all around my neighborhood, places that are easy to get to on my motorcycle that I really enjoy here in Oakland. So, I think it's a matter of practicing so that you can learn to write anywhere, more or less. Yeah. So question number 2, coffee or tea? Both. I drink a lot of coffee these days, not as much as I used to a few years ago, but I really like tea, and I'd love to sort of transition into a generally tea person as opposed to a mostly coffee person, but it sort of remains to be seen. I like black teas and I like green teas. I usually have chai when I have the opportunity because I like the spiciness. All right, question number 3. What is your favorite book of all time? That's a tough question, but I suppose there's an answer that really stands out in my mind. The book that's had the biggest impact on my life probably would be Dune by Frank Herbert. I was, an avid reader. I loved reading Lord of the Rings. I read Harry Potter. I was a reader from a very young age. But the book that was most transformative for me, and it's probably because I read it at such a sensitive time, in high school, reading Dune kind of changed the way that I thought about life, changed the way I thought about water, changed the way I saw myself as a creative person, and it made me want to write fiction of my own in a way that reading Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings never did. But now, going back and reading Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, I can approach them as a writer and enjoy them even more. But the book that really cemented my desire to become a writer was Dune by Frank Herbert. Next question. NaNoWriMo, yes or no? A strangely complicated answer, because yes, I try every time, and I have never won NaNoWriMo. I've participated for a number of years, but for some reason I just can't win. A couple nights ago, I went to an event in Oakland called NaNoLitmo, which is a new thing that the Nano group is doing because they're based nearby in Berkeley. And Chris Batty, I think his name is, he's the guy who founded NaNoWriMo, did a reading there. And we got talking, he had a Q&A, and I asked kind of, perhaps selfishly, I asked what words he would have to say to someone who is a multiple-time participant and never winner of NaNoWriMo. And he had very encouraging words to that hypothetical person. And it was very inspiring. And that evening, I was sort of brainstorming with a friend who came with me, and I came up with what I think is going to be a really cool premise for a Nano story. So I'm going to jump in head first in November this time, and I'm going to try to win Nano by writing a very robust outline in advance and committing myself to knowing exactly what I need to write every day in Nano so that I can win. Yeah, so Nano, yes, but it's super hard and I've never won. This is question number 5. What genre would you write if you had no restrictions? I don't really feel like I have any restrictions right now. I write what I want to write. I write sci-fi and I write some fantasy. Right now I'm really enjoying writing short horror. I think it's a lot of fun, especially body horror, which is ironic because I can't handle it in movies. Like, I get a visceral pain from watching horror or frightening things. Like, I can't do scary movies unless I'm walking around the room or like restricting blood flow to my girlfriend's wrist because I'm holding her arm so tightly. Whatever, just super like manly stuff. I'm really into heteronormativity. So yeah, I don't really think that question applies to me because I write what I want to write. I don't feel very restricted in those terms. Question number 6. If you could have one superpower, what would it be? In terms of cool factor, I've always liked the Nightcrawler power, like the teleportation thing that he does. But as far as like being a writer is concerned, I think invisibility would be best because that would be the greatest way to observe human behavior in such a way that I could, integrate it into my creative work. I really like being a fly on the wall and staring at people, which is like horrible, and I shouldn't do it. I really like staring at people, overhearing conversations, just kind of like watching the world unfold around me. And I've found a lot of inspiration for short fiction from just watching things happen and then sort of extrapolating on my own. Like, even things that are no longer related to the thing that I saw, it just sort of gets my my creative juices flowing. Like, for instance, there was a time on the train, I saw a woman who was asleep, like eyes fully closed, asleep, and she had her phone out, and she had the calculator app open, and she was just tapping numbers on her calculator, and she was multiplying them and subtracting them and just like doing math while she was asleep. But like, she wasn't doing math, she was just tapping out on her calculator. And I don't know what could come of that idea. Like, it's really weird, and it was a strange sight. But I wrote that down because I thought that it might be something cool. You never know. Like, if you sit down and think about it for long enough, you might come up with something really great to sort of build on that strange thing. So I think invisibility, because it would afford me an opportunity to really observe people and things happening in their natural environments without like collapsing the wave function and having my observation really affect the situation. Gangster. That was a gangster answer. I'm a gangster. Question number 7. Who is your favorite author? I mean, my gut tells me to say Brandon Sanderson because I just love the way that he tells stories. I love his the avalanche of things that sort of coalesce in the latter third of his books. Everything is chaotic and crazy, and there's a very cool magic system, and there's a lot at stake. And then the final third of his books usually is just like a cavalcade of like event after event after event after event after event, and things just start to happen, and everything explodes, and there's this wonderful resolution. But his prose, I mean, he says himself that he doesn't want his prose to overshadow what he considers to be a fun story. He writes, what do they call it? Window pane, instead of stained glass. He wants you to look past the prose and into the story, whereas other authors, and this isn't like a knock against either kind of storytelling, but other authors will do what's called stained glass writing, where the prose itself colors your view of what's taking place on the other side of that window. And I just really enjoy his stories. But as far as prose, like quality of prose, I don't know. I read a lot, as you can tell on my book review site, and I like all different kinds of writing for different reasons. I just read a wonderful book by Peter S. Beagle called Summerlong, and I thought the prose was very beautiful. There was some really evocative stuff. I mean, Pat Rothfuss writes beautifully. His books aren't without their own issues, but the prose I enjoy quite a bit. I love Mary Robinette Kowal's writing. Got like a million books over here. It's kind of a hard question to answer, to be frank. But as far as like who my go-to writer is for books that I just enjoy to read right now, that would be Brandon Sanderson. Cool. Question number 8. What music do you listen to as you write? That depends on what I'm writing. And I think that's true for everyone. But I think a universal truth is that we listen to a lot of instrumental music. It's very difficult to write to music with lyrics, just by virtue of the fact that having other words into your brain can be pretty distracting. I know that there are a lot of people out there who can split their cognition that way and just sort of like disregard English words and come up with other ones, and live those two moments separately. I'm not as good at that. But it really depends on what I'm writing. So like when I was writing a horror short that I finished recently, I just listened to the soundtrack of Stranger Things over and over again until I got burned out on that. And then I just like searched for horror on Spotify and found someone had curated a list of soundtracks, sort of like epic moments from scary movies. That worked wonders. Like, you know, it's amazing what... I sneezed. It's amazing what music can do to encourage the imagination along to sort of to keep that ball rolling. So it just depends. If I'm just kind of like, if I need the energy to write, I usually put on like some drum and bass or fast-paced music. Like I not necessarily like leaning towards techno. I think that's a little too like the pew 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 pew, like that sort of noise doesn't really work for me. But like that really works for me. And that's going on the internet. Question number 9. Let's go for it. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? I love where I live. Oakland is fantastic. I have a wonderful life here. But I grew up in Israel, in the Middle East, and if I could, I would absolutely move back to Israel. I'd probably live in Tel Aviv. It's a magnificent place. It's not without its problems, but there is a tremendous thing about the culture there because it mixes based on its global position and its relationship to other countries in the world. It has this wonderful Middle Eastern hospitality that is very unique to Arab culture. That the Israeli culture kind of assimilated that, which is to say, there's this wonderful sense of welcome almost everywhere you go. When I grew up there, strangers who didn't speak the same languages as me would invite me into their house for lunch, and we would just nod and smile at each other, and I would eat, and I was like 11, and that kind of thing would just never happen in the U.S. And then at the same time, there's also this sensibility of a European megalopolis because it's got all of that influence from Europe, and you'll go to these large cities, and they have all of that kind of like that sensibility of a European country, wonderful eateries, beautiful cafes that you can sit at for hours and not be interrupted. And there's just this wonderful melding of cultures. And yeah, I mean, it played a huge role in my life. And I think despite the fact that I've been living in the States now much, much longer than I ever lived in Israel, I think that my identity is very strongly tied to my growing up there. and to the connections that I still have, and to the experiences that I had there as a child. So yeah, I would definitely move to Israel again. And finally, question number 10. What do you do when you get writer's block? This is a thing that happens, to almost everybody. I think that calling it writer's block, I think calling it writer's block is actually kind of counterproductive, because oftentimes what's blocking us it doesn't have to do with actually writing. It's something else. It's an emotional problem we're having somewhere else. It might manifest in our lives as writers, but the struggle that we're facing, that emotional turmoil over being able to write, being unable to write, there's usually, in my experience, something else going on in my life that has incited this event of writer's block. And all that notwithstanding, what do I actually do when I get writer's block? I mean, step one, always just feel terrible about yourself, and that makes it worse. That's what I do first. And then, I have a great therapist, and I've talked to her about the catharsis that I get from writing, but the struggle to actually get restarted. And it's just a matter of remembering how good it feels to that release, either from talking to someone that I trust and that I can really vent to, or writing it. There's a wonderful power in words, either written or spoken, and the best way to get over writer's block, to quote Lin-Manuel Miranda in Hamilton, is to write your way out. And it's kind of an oxymoron, because that's the thing you're struggling to do, but I think it's also the best thing you can do. Some of the things that I'm proudest of came out of these moments of writer's block, where I forced myself to sit down and to just do it. To just commit to doing it. So yeah, I guess that's my my author tag video, which will have to be edited because I sneezed at one point. I don't really know who to tag. I don't really know who else has a writerly YouTube presence. So I'm going to pause, think about it, and then I'm going to record myself in a minute saying who's up next. I figured out who I'm going to tag for the author tag video. I'm going to tag friend of everybody's, who is just going to be a big circle of friends who's doing this. I'm going to tag author C. Brennicky, who wrote 7 Shards, The Color of Wine. I hope to God I didn't just mess that up. But C. Brennicky, it's your turn. I look forward to seeing your video, and thank you all for watching mine. Catch you later.